And if we want to make the money that we want to make, that is where we need to spend the lion's share of our time. And so if we want to just hang out and party and get to know patients and help them achieve their goals, I could train a monkey to make sure a patient does 3 sets of 10 lat pull. It doesn't take anything above minimal competency, but we're stuck in that trap.
Some things on the docket today. We're going to be talking about CrossFit back in the news. Good, bad, sad, scary. APTA comes up in discussion, and this is going to surprise, a lot of you. APTA was the scapegoat again. I don't work for APTA, but I just do find it interesting that APTA is all of the reasons that are wrong with our profession. And then we're going to get into sort of some different business model questions. These always pop up in Facebook groups, on Reddit, people looking for advice. And the funny part is if you watch long enough, the topic just comes back up again. I'll be joined by my co-hosts, Tony Maritato and Dave Kittle. Without further ado, I want to kick off with CrossFit. This is in the news for sad reasons. They had, I'm not a CrossFit, I don't follow it. I don't practice it. I think I mentioned to you guys, back in PT school, I was super anti. And I think it was because there was I don't know if it was a New Yorker article back when I was in PT school, and it was all about rhabdo. It was 2014.
Oh, I remember that one.
And it was everywhere. And I remember I'm a PT student. I'm reading this. Oh my gosh, CrossFit is evil. And I went around telling everybody I could it was evil. And then I was like, oh, it's actually just a bunch of people working out. Got it. Okay. And rhabdo's a thing, but it's not everywhere. The way the article was written, and obviously it was written well for spreading, was this thing is going to be an epidemic. People are going to be dropping dead of rhabdo, or they're going to be losing limbs, or whatever happens. Kiddies are going to be shutting down. And that wasn't necessarily the case. Then CrossFit went on to, I don't know if it was singularly responsible. I think maybe Lululemon probably had a little bit to do with it, and yoga fashion, but was really instrumental in the last, I'd say, 10 years of kicking off this, function and exercise being kind of in fashion. But they were in the news just a couple of days ago. They had a competitor in a pretty elite competition. He drowned and he passed away. And a lot of people were commenting on this. And I thought because it was in the exercise world, it would be remiss. We'd be remiss not to talk about it. So that's the story. Did you guys see this?
Yeah, I saw the video, and it was very close to I don't know if it was a finish line, but they were coming out of the water. He was he was, I don't know, 50 yards or 100 yards away from the shore. And it looked like lifeguards on each side, on paddle boards or something, or whatever, lifeguard, device. But they're like you said, I think in messaging, that all the competitors were kind of spread out. So I think they maybe weren't having enough lifeguards per competitor at that phase of the event when there's, a lot more fatigue. And they also maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions and saying a lot of these competitors or the whole brand and all the lifeguards, you just don't think that that's going to happen because these are elite athletes and they're going to be able to just, get through it and all that.
There's a lifeguard at the Olympics, my man. We always put a lifeguard. That stuff happens. So I believe this was a repeated. And I don't have the details. Someone will correct me in the comments, and I hope they do. It was a run, swim, run, they were doing it back and forth. So it was kind of what CrossFit's known for, which is do a thing, but do it a lot of times or over and over and over again. And so I guess there was some video online. I don't watch them, just FYI. If it's we have footage of the person getting hurt or killed, I don't watch it. I'm the one guy, but I won't do it. But as a triathlete or a former triathlete, I haven't done one in a while. There's a reason the swim is first in the triathlon. And there's a couple, and I was dictating it. This is where I get to sound smart. And it's because, number one, you want people as fresh as possible, because in terms of swim, bike, run, swim is pretty dangerous. So is bike, right? Traveling that fast. But swim is dangerous because of drowning. So you want the athletes as fresh as possible. And then as a former lifeguard, get to break that out of my resume. You want to be able to maximize your eyeballs from guards per swimmer, right? So you can do that if they all start at the same time. They will spread out, But if you started out on the bike or the run and then did the swim last, you'd be having people every 20 minutes maybe, or you don't know.
They're all over
So
the
it
place.
looks like this event, like when I saw this first story, I was like, oh, cringe, man. Like, don't do that. It's just, as a lifeguard, it's too hard. Like, what does drowning look like? Just newsflash, not in the movies. It's super silent. And no one, if you're yelling, it means you have a lungs full of air. That's not what drowning it's silent drowning. So, is this surprising? No. Is it sad and heartbreaking? Yeah, because it feels like it could have been prevented.
You said that. I didn't realize that. Like, I grew up in Florida. We were in the water constantly. There were multiple times where I felt like I wasn't going to make it out of that water just because I'm just not a great swimmer, but I was always in the water. Silent. Like, that's the thing. Now that we have kids, Dave, you're stepping into this world. What does drowning look like? And I remember hearing and learning about this. It's really scary once you start to dig into it.
It's not in the movies where, throw Baywatch out of it. Listen, guys, Baywatch was not an infomercial. It was not a documentary. It was entertainment. It's quiet, it's silent and professional. Not to say this guy was a competitive fitness person, but now you put people in it. This is an interesting environment. This is why I'm a good triathlete. Because if you put me against swimmers, I lose. But I can swim faster than some cyclists and runners. I can cycle faster than swimmers and bikers, and I can run faster than cyclists and swimmers. So this guy was fit. Swimming's a different animal, man. It is a difficult exercise on an unstable surface, not even a surface. Like, so danger. So this is really sad. And then Tony, you and I were talking about this before we hit go live. That guy, Greg Glassman, I'm pretty sure he's known as like the founder of CrossFit. He doesn't own it. I guess he sold it.
Yeah, I had no idea. Did you look it up or anything, Dave? Have you heard anything about this?
He had some. I think he had some comments years ago. He had some not so flattering comments. I think on something polarizing, and I think he sold it.
George Floyd.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up. Following the outcry after Glassman's comments regarding the murder of George Floyd, selling the company to Eric Rosa.
Yeah, so I don't know the whole story, but I would assume like whoever else owned the company, partially owned it at that time when he made those comments, they were probably like, hey, this is bad for the brand. And almost like Donald Sterling from the LA Clippers, like, we need you to sell the company. We need you, or Papa John, or, we're going to buy the rest of, we're going to buy you out basically.
I just see Jonah Hill from the Oscars, like that one, like that gift.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, cut it, bro. Like, you're out. But the reason I'm bringing him up is people were saying I could see him buying back CrossFit now to as an opportunity. You don't think so?
No.
They wouldn't let him, or he wouldn't want to?
Because I think with the whole George Floyd thing, now that rings a bell, that wasn't that long ago. And nowadays, like, bigger brands and companies, like, the sentiment in the marketplace is still important. And that would just potentially be brought back up. And then I don't know, does Reebok own some of CrossFit still, or maybe they used to, or not sure. But if they do, like, they're a powerhouse, so they're going to say there's absolutely, like, he does not bring any value anymore to the cap table if we bring him back into ownership. So I would push all my chips in and say there's no way he's going to come back and own CrossFit.
Yeah, I do want to mention the person's name because I think the person, it's Lazar Ducic. Was the competitor from Serbia, 28 years old, man. And like, that's the thing I wanted to bring up is like this, like, I don't know, man. I am never directed a race, but the minute I heard about that and read 2 lines into it, I was like, dude, why do you have tired people swimming? Like, that aren't necessarily swimmers, right?
And
like,
maybe later today or future episodes, I think we sometimes talk about change, and I would bet that this will dramatically change CrossFits and any of the other Spartan races or whatever. When there's people now in the water for all these other races, they will. I would bet in terms of change, they're going to dramatically increase the amount of lifeguards, and it might even swing the other way, and maybe it's going to be 1 lifeguard per competitor.
Oh, you can't. I mean, I don't know if you could do that. So it would do this. They have
volunteers, or who knows?
They have personal buoyancy devices. So what you essentially have is like a pup tent bag, like the light bags. They fill that with air, and they'll put that on like a little belt, and you can't float on it, necessarily, you can't use it like for speed, like you can't use it as a floaty and kick, but you can use it in case you're going down. And they've even had like devices that are on your ankle that are empty with a little air CO2 canister or something, and you push the button and it inflates. Because this came up because people were like, I want to do the Ironman, but the swim scares me because the swim in the Ironman is 2.4 miles. But you want to talk about change, Ironman had a problem. Ironman changed their swim. Their swim used to be pretty famous, and I got to do one of these, so I was a little point of pride because now what they do is they do a staggered start. They shoot a gun. There's chips on your ankles. Your clock doesn't start until you step into the water. It used to be 3,000 athletes treading water, listening to Rihanna at 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever, or, Creed as they're blasting it. And then they would shoot a cannon off and everybody goes. And they used to call it the washing machine. And like ESPN named it like one of the top 10 moments in sports of and they've done like some underwater photography. And I'll be honest, I'm pretty confident in the water. It was crazy. It was cool to be there, but it was like, because if you've ever done the start of a marathon like that, you're all huddled in and you're trying to get to the inside, do that in the water. It was a little bit nuts. So anyway, you want to talk about change? Ironman changed that. That was like sort of one of their signature moves. I mean, think about that with drones. You want to make the hype of an Ironman start hypier. The start, everybody together, and here we go. And they changed that for safety. The other reason too was people were going from zero heart rate. Well, not zero heart rate. That means you're dead. They were going from 60, 80 beats a minute, like getting hyped, to like 170. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to sort of I think bring down the stress a little bit. Someone will correct me, but I'm pretty sure that was like two of the reasons. Safety is they needed to increase it because they realized every time, because people do pass away in these exercise events. My non-exercise friends are always like, people die doing these things. Why do you exercise? I'm like, well, my man, all right, that's a little deeper question. But even a big corporation, that's what Ironman is. It's a corporation. Even they said, we got to make a change because when this happens, if it's preventable, it's just, not even bad business. Before that, it's bad humanship, right? It's just bad. People shouldn't have to. And then 7 steps later, it's bad business. So even they made the big change. I 100% agree. CrossFit's they got to do something. They got to do something.
Let's talk about some of the business lessons learned from CrossFit. Like CrossFit at its heyday. CrossFit when it was growing like crazy, what they did right, what maybe they did wrong. I'll tell you one of the things that I pull out of CrossFit every time, especially when therapists tell me every PT session needs to be one-on-one for it to be quality care. I think about, a CrossFit coach, moderately trained, running 20 people in a warehouse doing snatch and clean and jerk when these are relatively untrained, normal humans like me. And they did it and people paid for it and they loved it. And they were paying premium memberships for dirty, leg hair on the rope, disgusting gyms, but it was part of the culture. And yes, people got hurt. This is very true. I saw plenty of injuries that would happen, but people get hurt walking across the street. I had a patient yesterday who was complaining about osteoarthritis in his knees because he was a college athlete and played all these sports. And I tell him the same thing every time. Like, you know what? I also know people who were sedentary, who sat in the library all through college, and they have osteoarthritic knees as well. I would rather be active and injured than inactive and still have the same pain and other issues. But back to... Go ahead.
No. I think I like this. Like this could turn into the focus of this episode, or at least the next couple of minutes, which is look at all the things CrossFit brings that, and we've had this conversation in the last few weeks, right? What I started saying, hey, everybody says mills are bad, but can you define a mill? And everybody started throwing out these definitions that were mostly subjective, or if they were objective, like X number of patients per hour, they were made up. And I was like, there's no line. So if you can't define something, you just sort of know it. That's subjective. So the question is, what are the things that you just mentioned that CrossFit brought in terms of value or reasons people went? Because it wasn't cleanliness. It wasn't evidence-based practice. It wasn't the degree of the instructor. Like quite literally, they're the opposite of PT because PT would be one-on-one. CrossFit is 15, 20 people at a time.
So I think CrossFit, the number one thing is community, right? It's no different than any church or any other, Rotary or, PTA group or whatever. Like it's community. There was a quote, you guys know Mitch Babcock? He's a physical therapist. I think he's in Michigan. He's absolutely ripped. barbell athlete. So he, for decades or whatever, he was like, he wrote something on Facebook or something, like he always was the earbuds, lifter at the gym, lifting by, so earbuds meaning you go to some big box gym and you work out by yourself and you're like that. And he never thought that he was going to love CrossFit as much as he did. And he said something around that of like, I no longer have the earbuds. It's like a community thing, and we, push each other, and you get to kind of see other people's challenges or their injuries or whatever. Like, but there's some affinity to that. And I agree, Jimmy, like for what we do, home visits, it is very, one-on-one. It's very personable. But then Tony's or any other outpatient office is kind of like in the middle. Like there is the socialization, there is the cheers effect. Like everyone knows your name and everyone knows what's going on, or people meet each other and become friends at physical therapy in an office. So I think I would have to push back and say, I don't know if it's the opposite of CrossFit, or you could say CrossFit is the opposite of my business model, where we go to people's homes and we do one-on-one. So maybe there's something we can break down.
I would say most of the time PT's one-on-one though, right?
I don't know. Ask Tony. Tony's got a different approach.
I mean, I'm glad you said that. What does that even mean? First, what's PT, right? There's so many aspects to it. There's so many elements to it. One-on-one in a group, like that's my preferred mode of delivery. I'll be one-on-one, but I want to have 20 people around me so we can all socialize and engage and kind of take the pressure off, the expectations off. That's my preferred mode of delivering the patient care experience. Real quick, so Scott said, how can we make physical therapy as a profession feel more like a community?
We should probably all join an association.
Well, so Scott, you should absolutely check out Total Therapy Solutions on YouTube. I don't know, Tony, do you do videos, or have you done videos where it's showing multiple patients that have agreed to be on video, or no?
I do it when I teach my Medicare billing course because I want to expose. So when I teach my courses, my intent is not to tell therapists to do it like this. My intent is to show therapists the boundaries. I'm like, look, you don't have to go this extreme. You don't have to be like me, but I want you to see what's possible. And there's a couple photos that I share, because any day of the week, if you walk into my clinic, you will see husbands and wives working out together. You'll see neighbors. You'll see, like, I was in the clinic the other day doing an initial evaluation, and I swear 3 out of 4 people that walked in the door while I was doing my evaluation knew the person that I was evaluating because they were neighbors or cousins or related in some way. And so obviously this builds huge community within my clinic. This gets me word of mouth referrals out the wazoo. But it improves compliance. It improves outcomes. Like there's so many benefits to something like that you just don't get if I was in a private room, kind of sequestered away from everybody else.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the opposite, the anti-PT, but it sure takes all the things that there's no such thing, right? Because it's all subjective. Like traditional PT, like every clinic I ever worked in was like, hey, here's your patient. You will be working with this person for the next 30, 45 or 60 minutes. And they were like, this is the 8:30. Are you jumping in the 8:30? Cool. Here's your therapeutic exercise. Here's your corrective exercise versus here's the WOD. Like everybody's doing this and we're going to figure out how you can do it. If you was watching a video the other day about remember the college student who had one arm? Remember that kid? And he
basketball?
was like, basketball player. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. He was like a guard. And they said the punishment for missing a pass or something was like fingertip push-ups. And the coach was like, we're going to do sprints. And the kid was like, no, we're doing fingertip push-ups. It was like, how are we going to do that? And he's like, we're going to figure it out. Like the kid with one arm was giving the lesson, not receiving the lesson. He was like, we're going to figure it out. So I don't know if it's the exact 180 degree opposite of traditional PT, most of it across the country, but it sure takes all the aspects and sort of flips them on their head. And I think what you see is what's the biggest thing that PTs love to make goofy videos about roasting their patients, which is compliance. Did you do the exercises? And like the patient in the video is like, of course, and then proceeds to demonstrate something that's not the exercise. That's the whole thing with CrossFit. It's like, if you're not doing it right, it's like, don't worry about it, man. We'll figure it. Let's do here. Okay, let's try this. Live, real.
I want to talk about Will Boyd's question.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Shortly, but when we talk about this goes back to, it's like, okay, again, there's no single answer. There's no, this is the way to do it. Dave has very different methodology, but if I was thinking, what is the ideal scenario? I think of somebody who gets referred to me for a knee replacement, for low back pain, for shoulder pain, or for neck pain. I don't care what they all have to lift something off the ground. They all have to walk. They have to ambulate, move throughout the community. They have to do certain things. So I'm like, why am I creating different plans of care? Why am I selecting different exercises for different people with different conditions when in reality, I could just have a workout of the day where like today it's all about sit to stand. I don't care what your condition is because everybody needs to stand from a chair, sit to a chair, and we're going to work on this. Tomorrow it's going to be, ambulation or mobility throughout the community. I could totally see that fitting into an insurance model. And then when I go back and I say, okay, the theory is Dave sees somebody on Monday, he shows them what to do. He's trying to build independence. He's trying to build resilience. Then I'm going to have this person do his own program for the next, 7 days. And I'm going to see him again next week. I think that's theory. I don't think that's reality. If you want me to do something, build the habit. Make me do it every single day. Let me get in here. Let me do it repeatedly. So I want to build that experience. And that's what you guys hear me talk about. I'll spend 10 minutes with a patient. I'll show them one thing. And we're going to do that one thing every single day for the next 2 weeks. And we'll make it fun and we'll make it exciting and we'll crack up and, but this is the one thing and I'm going to make sure you do it. Now, I can't bill insurance for all of that.
Right.
But if I could build a profitable model, I could deliver that experience and I can achieve the outcome.
Right.
Just different ways to get into the same goal. That
was the thing that got me from like guy who wanted to do a triathlon one day to doing one was there was a group that met at 5:05 and did a bike ride. And I knew I wasn't riding 25 miles or whatever by myself. I just knew it, but I could try to keep up with people who were riding 25 miles. So I think that that group thing is a thing. I mean, like look at CrossFit, look at Pilates. We got have you guys ever heard of Megan Bellamy Brown? She's a friend of mine. She's a PT. She'd be great on a live stream. Her model is she's a liar. She runs a Pilates studio in Alexandria, Virginia, like one of the hardest, most expensive real estate in the country, right? She runs a Pilates studio. I'm using quotes, Megan, because it's a lie. You come in for the Pilates, and then she does, and then by the way, you're actually buying community, and she's a PT. So she the last thing she tries to do is sell PT. She tries not to sell PT. She refers out. She's like, oh, no. And people are like, oh, you're a PT? Like nowhere on her marketing is she like, unless maybe in her about section, is she like, I'm a PT. She understands what business that she's in. She's in the community business. She's in the repeating and creating a habit business. All right, let's get to Will Boyd's question.
So he said, I'd love to hear from you guys about how you guys handle unexpected bad things in your business. I've got a laundry list of these, so I'll share a couple first and then we'll jump on you guys. Love to hear from other business owners, how they respond to bad moments. All right, let me grab two. So I can remember we were still in South Florida, Sarasota. We had 3 clinic locations. We came to Ohio. We opened 2 more clinic locations. So we're sitting at 5 clinics. Business is going well. We're hitting a new phase in business. We're trying to make some decisions. And one of my main people decided they're going to go independent. I've never done non-compete. I've never held anything against anybody, but this was tough because now all of a sudden I'm not going to go back to Florida. My family is here in Ohio. And this was somebody that was really running the show. He wanted to buy the clinic. We just couldn't figure out a way to make that work. So he leaves, opens his own clinic about a half a mile up the road from me. He has all the relationships. I hadn't been there in like 5 years. The staff wants to, stay in place, but then they also have some loyalty to him. There are people that he hired that I never even met. Long story short, we lost probably 50 to 60% of our revenue from that clinic. That was our main clinic that was driving all of the growth, all of the revenue for everything else. Cut us down by half, had to hire a traveler, had to figure out how we're going to deal with this. took a year of losses. Then the second year we kind of break even. Third year we were back to where we're back to a growth trajectory. But that was tough. And on a personal level, it's tough because I always said, if you can do it better, go do it for yourself. Yeah, sure. And I'm never going to hold that against you, but like anything, you got to overcome that challenge, that adversity. And I just tried to stay true to my personal values, that no matter what, I still to this day would say, if anybody working for me wants to leave and wants to do it themselves and believes they can do it better, go do it. Because you're not tied to me. There's no obligation to me. You can leave tomorrow. I'll deal with my business. You deal with your business. The other one, just super quick, when we had first started, we knew nothing about therapy. We knew nothing about billing. We were cash-based for everything. We hired a billing company, months and months, no collections. I shared this story also. Hired a second billing company. They couldn't fix the first billing company's problems. We ended up losing like $60,000 in that first year of business. We would have been done if we didn't have the personal training side. I was not a physical therapist, so I was growing the personal training business. But like, these are things that you're not prepared for when you're bootstrapping a business like that. But like anything, we overcame, we learned our lessons. It never happened to us again in the next 22 years after that first year. And we just stayed true to the idea that, hey, this is what we want to do. What about you guys?
Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
Well, I don't have anything that cratered as much revenue as Tony's experiences, but I do have a couple. When I transitioned from a previous company that was doing home visits in New York City and then opened up my own shingle, a few of those quote unquote that guy's patients wrote me a Google review on my practice's Google listing. The owner of, by the way, I put this out publicly. I was interviewed on Urson's show about this, whatever. Like, this guy went ballistic. He had contacted Ron Miller a bunch of times. He had contacted Rob Vining a bunch of times. He was writing publicly all over, like, the second coming of the devil, basically. There was nothing signed on file in terms of like, quote unquote, poaching patients or whatever. But this was early 2020, early COVID. And it was, there was a bunch of stuff, publicly, like he post like negative Google reviews he posted on my business, 1-star Google review, one-star Facebook review on my Facebook page, my business page. I mean, just crazy stuff, crazy long emails, a tirade, just, yeah. I mean, so it's the opposite of how Tony has approached business and employees or team members or whatever. But again, there was no big money loss or revenue loss like in Tony's experiences. And also, like, I don't know, I'm not saying I'm tough but I definitely have, a different level of thick skin, because I think not a lot of people could have, especially during COVID, because like early COVID, it was like there was so much uncertainty. I was, we were treating patients with gloves on and masks on, and it was crazy. And then I'm getting emails like, and text messages and voicemails and messages from every platform from this guy, from this previous owner. And saying, he's going to tell Karen Litzy, he's going to tell everyone in New York City that I'm like the worst physical therapist, I'm the worst person ever, and just craziness. Now, to answer Will Boyd's question, like, how did I respond to that? Will said that I have the East Coast, Philly, NYC thick skin. Exactly. So how do I respond to that? First thing is, I didn't respond to this guy for months. Like, in terms of like, what would be like the best legal response is like no response. Eventually it kind of got settled. I don't know, like, he just eventually went away, but he was very crazily persistent. Like, I think he was doing these messages for like 2 years, literally from 2020 to like 2022.
Yikes.
And he said that then he posted somewhere, so he posted a 1-star review somewhere online that I cratered his whole business. And it's like, how does one employee leaving crater your whole business? Like, Tony gave an example of like how it actually can affect you.
If one employee can leave and create your whole business, you don't have a business. You have a great employee. I don't know. Maybe that's just my snapshot, response.
Yeah. And I had said to him, I'm like, hey, I'm interested in, maybe buying some of this business. This was back in, I don't know, probably 2016 or 17 or something, or 18. And then he kind of brushed me off. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go open up my own shingle. I'm going to, I understand the whole business model. I get it. I see how profitable it is. I see that there's demand for this service, especially in Manhattan. So I'm going to go do my own thing.
This is a good question from Will Boyd, like unexpected challenges and how you respond. And I've been taking notes. I'm looking for like the themes that you guys have responded with. And I think there is one, at least maybe two. For me, it was when podcasting really switched to video and like everybody there's actually more people with podcasts now than without. Like we've hit the tipping point. Like everybody's got a podcast. Like you telling someone you have a podcast is like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I think I had to decide what business I was in. Like, am I doing this or not? And then understanding what business I was actually in. How I might do this is podcasting, but the idea is you're still in an attention game, and you're in an education game or an inspiration game or an entertainment game, and understanding those things. And I think whenever I would get frustrated, because every couple of years, Apple will shuffle the deck and they'll change the algorithms. And you can be mad at it, or you can say Apple's trying to keep things a little bit more pure because people are figuring out how to game the system in terms of download numbers or anything like that. And they shuffle the deck, and then all of a sudden your downloads just crater. And you're like, wait, what just happened? Am I less valuable today than I was a month ago because my downloads were cut by 40%? It's like, well, no, it's just they weren't as accurate a month ago. They're actually more accurate now. So I know it's hard egotistically to say, okay, they're more accurate now. Doesn't mean I'm worth nothing. But then I actually looked at it, and someone else that gave me like a good mindset. I think it was a person from academia, like not in media, not in anything related to what I did. And they said, great. So does this happen just to you or to everybody? I was like, well, everybody. And they go, great. So each download is now worth more. It just like the value per download just went up because everybody across the board, it got slashed. So I looked at it like that, and I was like, oh, shoot. Okay, if I look at it like that. So the two things for me are, am I going to flip to what we're doing right now if you're watching the live stream or realize that we do these via video now? I was super apprehensive about that because I was just like, I don't know, I was a radio guy, and like, do people care? But then I realized I could do two at the same time, and it was actually a yes and. Now I can make eye contact with Tony. Could you imagine if we were doing this episode with no eye contact? Like the amount of like, wait, should I go?
Video is so much better. Video is so much better than no eye contact.
Even if you never watched the video, just for recording it. I've watched when I interview people that are guests, their anxiety is way lower because I'm doing all the things that we talk about with patients or anybody. I'm nodding, I'm smiling, I'm making, pseudo eye contact. It makes me less stressed, therefore they're less. So the two things, switching to video, and when Apple shuffles the deck every 2 to 3 years, and here comes the theme that I think tied us all together, which what is the bad thing and what do we do about it, which is there's an emotional component to this, and you can freak out, and I could go write negative 1-star reviews for Apple about how dare they shift their own algorithm for their own proprietary thing called podcasting and be mad about it and shake my fist at the world, or I can be mad for 24 hours or upset or emotional for 24 hours, but don't do anything. Don't write the email. Don't make the ranting post. Just be emotional and then go, okay, how does this change this for me? Do I still want to be in this business? If the answer is yes, then figure out how. And I feel like each one of you had that emotional thing. I mean, losing 50% is insane. Many people would pack it in and be like, well, that model's dead. I'm out. I did this with radio. I looked ahead and said, everything's shifting. Do I want to be in this business? And after 20 something years of becoming a radio intern and going to college, I said no, and I left. And I was fine with it because I decided I didn't want to be in this business. This business will fundamentally change with the invention of smartphones and the internet. I didn't want to be in that anymore. And I left, and I never felt bad about it. I missed it, but never felt bad about it. So I think it's check the emotion and now make the decision. Do I still want to do this? If the answer is yes, do it. The answer is no, don't do it. That's simple, not easy.
Let's keep this theme going. Jimmy, you shared this screenshot. So opening your own practice. After graduation, I plan on opening in my own practice. I run an Anytime Fitness franchise, green-lighted PTs to practice in their gyms. Keep in mind, no overhead costs, which isn't right. Just a partnership. My question here, how much revenue can one PT practice make? Now, I don't know if this person's asking for one PT in the practice or one PT practice. Like obviously one PT practice, ATI, Athletico, like it's infinite.
Yeah.
I do live in a rural area with plenty of connections, patient referrals. I plan on billing insurances primarily. So a couple of things that I responded to Jimmy's post when he shared this originally, and it was kind of tongue in cheek a little bit, but I said, mistake number one, this individual thinks that if they're going to do insurance is your customer. The patient is not your customer.
Correct.
And I say this repeatedly, insurance is your customer. You serve the insurance company. The patient is the insurance company's customer. Number two, if you're doing insurance, particularly Medicare, you have to pay fair market value for the space. You can't just work out of the space for free. There's all these rules and regulations, even to the degree that Medicare requires a provider to have exclusive use of a specific area for treating patients. So in the Medicare guidelines, it talks about a pool, a community pool, YMCA pool. If you're going to rent a portion of the pool to treat patients, you have to have exclusive use of that portion of the pool. We see therapists that will rent a room or a corner of a CrossFit gym and Anytime Fitness, and they use the whole thing. Technically, that is not compliant with the Medicare guideline. And then just, the idea, and I think this is the topic here. Therapists think, well, this gym has 500 members. I'm going to go into the gym. All those people need physical therapy. I'm going to be swamped. I'm going to have, unlimited patients. And the reality is those people don't generally want physical therapy. I can't tell you how many therapists open in a CrossFit gym, open in a yoga studio, and they get like 0 or 1 random person from the gym because that community doesn't want to feel like they need physical therapy. Even if they would benefit from it, they don't want to go. They don't want to be dependent on a therapist. That's why they're doing those other things.
Right.
My clinic is full of people who don't go to the gym, and so when they get referred to physical therapy, they come because they think that they need me to fix them, which I don't. But if I'm a CrossFit, participant, I'm doing all this stuff, my shoulder could be dislocated and I am not going to go to a physical therapist. I'm going to do 3 more kipping pull-ups and that's going to fix my shoulder. So what do you guys think about that post?
Well, first, I think he was asking a solo practice. So he wrote a one PT practice. So It sounds like a solo physical therapy practice.
Hold on. Yeah. He says, I run an Anytime Fitness. I run. So I'm like, he's the manager of an Anytime Fitness, or he owns a franchise of an Anytime Fitness, right? And the franchise greenlit PTs to practice in their gyms. And I'm like, okay, so what I think he's saying is I'm already here. Can I act as a PT when I can get paid as a PT and bill insurance? And then when I'm not doing that, I will act as a trainer or a manager or a facilitator of the facility, right? And I mean, it's a Reddit post. I'm trying to be accurate.
Maybe, he's trying to double dip. I don't know.
Right. Well, I think what he's saying is what Tony was saying was like, well, I have a bunch of people and I'm a PT and these people are moving and we're movement experts, which I hate that I don't know, that term just drives me insane. But I think what he's trying to say is like, why can't I be the PT for this place? So like, what do you think, Dave? Like, but then he asks a question which everybody just wants to scream, it depends, which is how much can one PT make in this setting?
I mean, with 100% in-network insurance, I don't know, 200 grand, 300 grand, depends on your payers.
Right. So I shared this and I thought we'd have more of a discussion, but I do feel like this is what I talked about in the opener, when like these posts like this pop up all the time, right? And people then chime in, like people just probably copy paste their own answers because it's just different people asking the same questions all the time. I did like, Tony, how you laid it out. Mistake 1, you wait to this is to the original.
I forgot about that.
Hobby. That was a different one?
No, I forgot I said that about the 7 years.
So this was Jay Lopez was the guy.
Yeah, it's the same post.
And then you essentially said, okay, here are your 3 mistakes. Number 1, you wasted 7 years becoming a PT when you wanted to be a business owner. Those are 2 different things. Can you do both?
By the way, Tony said this is tongue in cheek, so don't read this literally. This is Tony with a little,
This is the internet. Everything is literal. Look, I can point at it. But the person sounds like they want to be a business owner. They are running or somehow in charge of a Anytime Fitness and a PT. Okay, I could see how one would be a great job while you're in PT school maybe or something, but these are 2 different things, right? You wasted 7 years becoming a PT when you wanted to be a business owner. Mistake 2, You highlighted you probably can't partner officially with Anytime Fitness in your state. If you want to bill insurance, you can rent. So this is now it's like, hey, what does it cost me? I'm just partnering. It's like, well, you can't know the rules in your neighborhood to make sure you don't break them. And then mistake 3, Tony, you've talked about this before. You're operating a billing company if you want to bill insurance, not a physical therapy company. How you might get permission to bill is physical therapy, but the business that you're in is a billing company, is what I think you're getting at. So you might be, and you're running a staffing company to deliver PT if you hire more people to get paid for the PT. But actually delivering the PT is the lowest priority on your list of responsibilities. And this, I don't know if this led to, or this was in parallel with your example, I thought, which was good, which is surgeons. Like surgeons are highly trained individuals. They could do stitches. They could put Band-Aids on. They typically don't. Why is that, Tony? Why aren't surgeons, putting bandies on boo-boos?
Well, this goes back to the bigger topic that we always talk about is, are you being paid for the job? Or are you being paid for your value? And you see therapists say, know your worth. Your worth is infinite. Nobody is ever going to pay you enough for what you are worth. So what is the job worth? And I brought up these topics around, okay, so did we overeducate the profession? And it's not about the DPT. I don't even care about the transition to DPT. It's, look, if I have a person that wants to build a house, that wants to do the thing, then why am I coaching them, training them, educating them to be the architect when they want to hammer the nails? And so I think so many of us want to deliver the service, which is an amazing, self-fulfilling thing. We love it. It makes us feel good. But our highest value, absolute monetary value, is in the evaluation, in the differential diagnosis, and developing the plan of care, and seeing the big picture and coordinating the team. And if we want to make the money that we want to make, that is where we need to spend the lion's share of our time. And so if we want to just hang out and party and get to know patients and help them achieve their goals, I could train a monkey to make sure a patient does 3 sets of 10 lat pull. It doesn't take anything above minimal competency, but we're stuck in that trap.
I've noticed PTs try to be like with a patient and be like hyper focused. Let me see exactly how you're doing that lat pull down. Hang on, I want you 3 millimeters to the right, because so what they're trying to do is they're trying to do the reverse of this. They're trying to demonstrate their hyper skill in this specific thing that, let's be honest, man, lat pull down. I mean, can you monumentally do it wrong? Sure. Are most people going to, but no. So what they've tried to do is rise the level of their pounding nails to architect level to make it look like that. And the audience knows, man, people know, people with no fitness, anatomy, physiology background know when they're being bullshitted. They do. They might not know exactly why, but they can smell it. I used to tell this with new radio DJs. Don't try to act cooler than you are. The audience will know, and they'll just get an icky feeling, and they just won't want to listen to you. They might not know why, but if you're puking your voice out like this to sound cooler, that's not cooler. That's something. That's your version of cooler, but not everybody. So be as real as you can. But I like this quote. This might be the thing that we use for the thumbnail, which is, you can't demand architect money while you're busy pounding nails. Right? So if you want to be the one hands-on, right, the entire time, or walking them through exercise, do that. But then don't be upset when you're not getting paid architect money, because you're not doing architect things. Surgeons get paid surgeon money when they do surgeon things. They can put boo-boos on ouchies. They don't, because they want to maximize their value, and that's how they do it. So Tony, your alternative, or how does a PT do architect things all day then?
Ooh, that's a good question. So for me, and there are seasons to our careers, right? When I was a younger grad, I was new into the profession of physical therapy. Yeah, I would just treat my patients and hang out and talk and help them achieve their fitness goals, their performance goals, all that stuff. But I wasn't making the kind of money that I needed to make to support a family. I wasn't making the kind of money I needed to make to do other things. I think there's a couple ways. I think one, if you know deep in your heart, I want to be a clinician. I don't want to be a business owner. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to do these other things. Then be a clinician, go partner with somebody who wants to do the other things. Dave is a great example. I could go work for Dave and do what I want to do best if I want to be a clinician, and let Dave handle the business side of things. Even though I'm taking home less money than I potentially could, he is dealing with all the headaches and the frustrations and the stuff that I don't want to deal with. And we see it, like, think of how many athletes and singers and all of these, more in the arts that are doing that on the side because it's their passion and they love it, but they still have their day job. They still have the thing that puts money in the bank account. So you can build the life you want, leveraging the financial tools and the resources you have, but you have to be mindful of it. You can't just sit there and complain, I don't get paid enough, when really the thing that you want to deliver just doesn't have that much monetary value to the person or the organization that's buying it.
Well, that's
where we are. Real quick, there's a guy he's a personal chef. I sent Dave the video last night. Personal chef in Las Vegas. I have no idea what kind of money this guy makes, but like, he literally does 3 meals a day for the family. He goes and buys all the stuff. Like, he does all this. He's an amazing artist when it comes to food. He seems to have an amazing lifestyle and is happy with what he's doing. He's living the dream that he's had. I don't know. I don't remember the channel, or I would share it, but that is a great example of, if I was a mobile therapist, I would be modeling what he has already achieved for his success.
Well, I mean, you talked about this tactically. Like, go ahead, Dave. What was the channel?
I'll pull it up. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you had said before, like, the solution to this, if you want to make, if you can't demand architect money while you're busy pounding nails, do architect things. The highest value, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the highest tactical value of doing architect things for a PT is evaluations.
Right.
Your goal should be evaluations, right? Because that is the highest value thing to your customer, which is not your patient. It's the insurance, if that's who you're going through. Otherwise, if it's your time and someone wants concierge care, they want someone of your level of skill watching them do lat pull downs and counting to 10 3 times, then that person will pay you for that. But that person is now your audience.
And it also helps. Someone commented a while ago on that tweet thread about my biceps and the whole concierge out of pocket. Someone did say, all you need to do to charge $250 to $400 per visit is to live in a place where there's patients willing to pay that. And I was kind of like, yeah, kind of touche. Like, like, that's why it's easier here in New York City compared to.
You can't do that. You can't charge $80 in New York City. You can't, right? Because you wouldn't be in business.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of the in-networks do, but then they're crazy volume-based. I don't know how they do it. All right, so real quick. So the YouTube channel, The Private Chef, is at Culinary Misfits, is the channel that Tony shared with it.
Yeah, go check this guy out. See what he's doing. Like, again, I think he does a great job with the content, with the message. He's building his personal brand. I mean, he is opening so many doors for himself into the future, but this is a great one to model. Now, to your point about go where the money is, solve expensive problems for people who have the money to pay for it.
That's what I do.
Alex Hermosi references Warren Buffett with the story where he says, it's not about what boat you're in, it's about, or something about going with the river, like, yeah, you have to put yourself in a position for success. I talk to therapists who want to be mobile, but they live in a rural area. It takes them 45 minutes to drive to one house, and they're frustrated because they want to get paid by Medicare. They don't want to charge the patient. They don't want to do telehealth because they don't enjoy it. They want everything, but their environment is not conducive to what they want. So it's like, okay, take a left turn, fill your bank account with money somehow, some way, and then come back, and you can spend a day treating 2 patients, driving, however many hours you need.
So here's the thing, though, because there's a good chunk of our profession who is blue, if you use the color game, right? They're all about, like, that's like the emotion one, right? But everybody deserves access, and I agree with you. But then you need to figure out a model. Someone's got to pay for that. If it's you giving it away for free, do that. But then you can't be like, well, I can't afford a house, or I can't live in this area, or I can't go on vacation, or where's my 401k? Can't do that. So solve expensive problems. And then if you want to give that away and you want to make it accessible, do that. I mean, Tony, you've talked about before different times of a day being more valuable. right? As a former pediatric PT, there were parents who, when you had the 3:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays slot for your kid, you were like, I'm never get that thing is worth an extra 10 grand, because you were like, it's right out of school, right? I don't have to take the kid out of school, but there's only one 3:30 to 4:30 spot. So I'm not saying don't do the philanthropy thing, which also shout out to Philanthro PT, who essentially says, I'll everywhere. That's Ryan Shelton. He's been saying this. But there's a way to do it. First, to help you get there is probably a business person, right? Because you're not gonna bleeding heart your way to win this. There needs to be a solution.
Yeah, we don't have time to hit it in this episode, but one of the posts that's kind of getting some traction in my Facebook group is Medicare for all, right? What do? Do we open up Medicare insurance for everyone? Do we go to universal health care? But even within that, I go back to, okay, there are therapists, lots of them. I would say the vast majority, and I don't think I'm exaggerating, who just want to be great therapists. They want to get paid a rate that allows them to live the lifestyle they want, but they just want to focus on patient care. They just want to treat patients. And so I'm like, okay, is the solution to demonetize, I hate to say healthcare services, let's say physical therapy services, take all of the financial incentives away. Let it be run by the government, not just insurance, the actual healthcare system. The actual physical therapist is a government employee, like a postal worker, like a, police officer, firefighter. Like, do we just let either city, state, federal run healthcare, pay them a salary, give them unionized benefits and all that stuff, and just wipe out any monetization problems? I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm just putting that out there. Is that the solution? And then allow private business to say, okay, look, there's your, everybody gets physical therapy at a basic level. Now, if you want more, that's where we can come in. That's where we can sell the next layer of the cake. That's where we can provide the services that aren't covered by universal health care. You guys ever talk about that or think about that?
Well, that's the NHS, right? That's England or Great Britain or the United Kingdom. I don't even know what to call them. That's what they do, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sure there's some nuance to that, but that's what they do, I assume.
But even in England, there's some private pay practices. Like I think Paul Goff has still 3 or 4 locations, and they're out of pocket. And then if you want to do NHS, like you go to the physio or whatever, and it's going to be like a 1 or 2 month waiting list or longer. We've treated in our practice, we treated someone that was living in Germany or from Germany. And when they contacted us here months ago, we were able to have a physical therapist at their door the following day. And they were like blown away by it, because in Germany back home, that would take, 2 or 3 months waiting list. And it's like, well, so unfortunately, that is the difference between when there's a gigantic system with a ton of people and there's so many factors, but one is serving a large population, but then you have to wait in line. And that's just how it is, whether it's Germany, England and NHS, or if it was here, Medicare for all. There could be Medicare. I almost commented. I didn't. I almost commented on that post because I wanted to comment because by the way, everyone's comments were like paragraphs, and I was just going to write. I
mean, they were novels. Yeah.
I didn't comment, but I was going to comment cash / out of pocket for all, and that's also would be kind of tongue in cheek, because we have Medicare beneficiaries in our family, neighbors, people that I've seen, and Medicare beneficiaries. I understand that the Medicare is for healthcare and health expenditures. I get it, for procedures. It's really needed, all that. But if you look at those Medicare beneficiaries, they are spenders like everyone else. They have iPhones. They go to Target, BJ's, Costco. They spend money on cars and tires and trips, and they spend money. And that's where I kind of come from. I'm not saying it's right for everyone. I know there's certain people in this population that are not spenders, and they actually have low socioeconomic status, and they actually do need the safety net. But I was going to comment that, but I figured like people were just going in so many different directions with the paragraphs and novels that they were writing. And I was just like, I'll sit this one out. Maybe I'll mention it here.
Well, think about your parting shots. Dwight Barnes on that thread left a comment that kind of laid out the different systems between Canada and Britain and Germany and a couple others. He and I don't agree on a lot of political things, but he's a super smart guy. He's got a great heart, and he did a great job kind of laying that out. I do still think too many of us are confusing payment for healthcare services with healthcare services. Medicare for all is, okay, everybody's going to get insurance, but that doesn't have anything to do with the healthcare that they're getting. It's like they want everybody to get healthcare, but they're going about it in a weird roundabout way.
Yeah.
So my parting shot, looking at today's conversation, you can't control what happens. You can't control what other people do. You can only control your response to the situation. And so, when we lost half our business and all these other challenges, the only thing I could control was how I responded to it. Like Jimmy said, let myself get upset, let myself get it out, let myself experience the pain. But then once it's done, and then you just move forward. And so what about Dave?
Oh man, we talked about a bunch. I don't know if this was a smooth themed episode, but it was interesting. It was kind of all over. I think we'll go back to my party shot would be like just knowing your practice, your business model. Whether again you have to know your consumer, your customer, who you're serving, all the players, all the stakeholders. So whether it's the patient and insurance, or if it's you're in a CrossFit business or you're in a physical therapy practice business. And the challenge is, for example, that Reddit post from that Jay Lopez or whoever, their question was so early on, and it's okay because we've all been there, but it's a newbie question. It's a noob or newbie question. And Tony's reply was such an advanced ninja response that a newbie cannot even understand when Tony says, if you're taking insurance, you're a billing company. If you're going to hire a therapist, you're kind of like a staffing company. I would not have even understood that a couple years into business. And I know that Jay Lopez probably doesn't even understand Tony's reply. But that's why it's great to have folks out there interact with a newbie, and maybe you can learn that faster or sooner, because otherwise it's just going to take years in the trenches as a business owner.
And money. You're going to go in there not knowing that, and you're going to get cut down. Maybe not. I mean, I'd love to be wrong, but these are expensive mistakes to make. I would have fallen for these mistakes as well had I gone that route. I would not have understood those. I'm just now starting to understand those. My parting shot is, you can't demand architect money while you're busy pounding nails. I like that one. That's a good one. So, and I would add to this, which is understand what business you're in, which sounds like a super organizations should stop working on their value, mission statement, vision for their website, and really figure out what business they're actually in. I mean, if you were going to reset a North Star as an organization, I would figure out what business that you're in and figure out who else is doing that well or who else does something similar well, and then double down on that. We're coming back on Thursday. Find all these guys on the socials, the Dave Kittle Show on YouTube, Learn Medicare Billing on YouTube for Tony and myself at PT Pintcast.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com, or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.